Greetings viewers, you already know what you're here for, so let's jump into it. Today we are going to be disassembling a Remington Versamax. This specific model is the competition tactical, but for the most part all the stuff I'm going to showcase here for you today will translate over to any one of the models that are available. There's only 3 tools that you may potentially need here. One of them is going to be a punch tool, as well as a 3/16 Allen wrench. This one actually came with the shotgun. Yours should have come with one as well, but if you don't have it, that's the size you're going to need. And then again, depending on which model and version your mag tubes are and how you've got it set up, you may or may not need your choke wrench. So that's all we're going to need for this, so let's jump right into it. First thing we're going to do is we are going to safety check. So we're going to make sure there's no rounds in the mag tube. We're going to pull the bolt back, physically and visually inspect the chamber, make sure there's no rounds in there. This weapon is safe. There's no ammunition in the room with me, so we can go ahead and start with disassembly. So this is one of the parts that may or may not be different depending on which model you have. I will show you 2 variations of this, but for the first part here, what we're going to do is we're going to remove the magazine tube extension. All we have to do for that is grip it and turn it to the left. Yours may or may not be a little bit tighter. I would put back pressure on here because the spring that's in there is going to make this thing want to shoot out. So just keep some pressure on it while you turn it to the left. And then allow it to gently come out, again, without shooting your mag extension across the room or bending your spring. So we can go ahead and remove this. And then I'll just tilt the shotgun down so that the follower comes out. Yours may be orange plastic, this one happens to be metal. Now, in the event that you don't have a magazine tube extension, you've just got your magazine cap on there. Once you remove it, and if you are met with something that looks like this little kind of serrated black plastic plug, this is where you are going to need your choke wrench. So again, if you don't have this, go ahead and skip it, go to the next step. Anyway, there are the notches in the choke wrench here coincide with the notches on the black plastic plug here. So we're going to go ahead and put that in. What we need to do is we need to push this flush, and we are going to turn it to the right until it stops, and then we're going to stop turning and we're going to slowly let this thing back out. And then again, you're going to see this is your plug. Now, what you're looking for here is these notches that are on the side of the magazine tube are going to coincide with these grooves that are in the plug here, so they have to go down, turn, and then lock in place here. All right, so now that our follower is out, if you, again, have a magazine tube extension, this is just a plastic tube that goes over. You may have to wiggle it a little bit. It's going to be kind of tight on there. It may be catching on the threads, but this sleeve just comes off. We can slide our handguard off. And then the barrel should just pull straight off the front of the shotgun. And now your shotgun is in 2 separate pieces. We're going to go ahead and start with the gas piston system. All right, so if you tilt the barrel with the muzzle pointing towards the sky, it'll give you access to these bolts here. Like I said earlier, they are 3/16. Your Allen wrench that came with the shotgun fits perfectly, or you'll have to find that size. So what we're going to do is just loosen these and remove them. So once you undo that, you should be able to then push the gas piston out the other side, and then you're just going to repeat that same step for this one. And then that'll give you access to clean or do whatever it is you need to do with these parts here, so we can go ahead and set this aside and get back to the receiver. All right, so for this, we're going to just need our punch tool. We've got our pin right here that needs to be pushed out. It doesn't matter which way you push it out. Just push it from one side all the way out the other. Set that aside. With that pin removed, we should then be able to depress the action release and pull our trigger assembly out. So pull it forward and out towards you, towards the bottom, and then this entire assembly will be removed. Do not take anything apart from here, or at least I would not recommend it, unless you actually know what you're doing, so just leave this in one piece. So from there, all we're going to do is we're going to push in on the front of the bolt. So again, it's spring-loaded right here, and then we're just going to pull up on our charging handle. It should just pop right out. That should now allow us to slide the bolt out of the front of the weapon. All right, so the next thing we need to do is remove this firing pin, retaining pin. You need to be careful because it is under spring tension. It will come shooting out of the back. So I would go ahead and recommend putting your finger in front of this rear portion here to keep it from shooting out. You just need to get under the head of this pin and remove it. Set that aside, and then we can release our firing pin and it should have a spring captured on it as well. Next thing we've got is this cam pin here. It's on the top portion of the bolt. So we should be able to turn it over and kind of knock that loose. You may have to finagle with it a little bit to kind of get it to come out. So you can see that that channel is where the firing pin is, so this will not come out until the firing pin has been removed. So once that pops out, we can then pull our bolt out of the front. If you're wanting to change something, like your length of pull spacers or take your stock off to replace it, I'm going to go into that step next. You are going to need a Phillips head screwdriver for that. And if you look at the back of the stock here, you'll notice that there are 2 holes. Basically what we're going to do is we're going to shove that Phillips head screwdriver in there until we make contact with the screw. You're going to you may have to wiggle it a little bit and kind of turn it to get it to engage with the screw head. But once you do that, you're just going to turn them to the left and remove them. All right, so once you get your screws loosened up to a certain point, they can stay captured inside the butt pad here. Doesn't matter as long as you don't lose those. We have access down into the butt stock here. There should be a single Allen bolt there. It will be the same size as the 3/16 that we've already got. So if you're wanting to take the stock off, we can put that down in there and just give it a turn. All right, once the screw comes out, there should be a washer with it, so make sure you don't lose that. It's a little split ring washer. I'm going to put that back on there so we keep it together. In order to remove the stock, you're just going to have to grab it and kind of wiggle it a little bit to get it to break free. All right, so the plate that's down in there, if you have the QD mount in the stock here, that will have to be removed because the way this goes in, you'll just need a flat wrench to undo this nut, pull that out. The little shape that looks like this has to go over this bottom screw hole there, and it won't pull up. It has to slide forward or backwards on there. That is obstructing it from coming out. So if, again, you are changing the cast plate because you're wanting to move your stock around, then you would need to remove this QD mount. If yours doesn't have that, that plate would just pop out, and then you would just slide the one in there where you want it. So I'm going to leave the one that's in there where it's at. And in terms of disassembly, there really shouldn't be anything else that you need to take apart for this shotgun. Like I said, if you're changing your length of pull spacers, if you're replacing the stock altogether, this is as far as you'll need to break the weapon down. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and clean this thing, and then we're going to kind of do a reverse order and put everything back together. All right, now that I've got it all cleaned up, it's time to go ahead and put the stock back on. First thing I'm going to do, just to make my life a little bit easier, is I'm going to go ahead and take my bolt with my washer on there. I'm going to stick it on the end of my Allen wrench. I'm going to put that washer on the screw, and then, like I said, I'm putting it right back in the configuration I took it off in. If you are changing your cast plate or doing something else, follow the instructions for doing that as you need. As you can see, I've got the little 4-leaf clover shape hole down in there. I'm just going straight through the center of that. So once I've got that in place, then I'm just going to slide this little recoil assembly through the stock. Line up those little lugs on the front until it sits flush with the receiver. I'm going to hold it there, and then I'm just going to go ahead and tighten this. I don't have any torque spec settings for you, just make it hand tight. Don't try and snap the bolt off, but just make sure it's tight enough that it's not going to back out while you're shooting. All right, so once that stock is reattached, again, it's flush here. You shouldn't see any sort of a gap between the stock and the receiver. It's time to put our butt pad back on. If the screws remained captured inside the butt pad, what I'll do is I'll go ahead and just push them all the way forward so that I can engage those teeth and make sure I've got it lined up. So you've got your 2 holes right here that the screws go into. I'll go ahead and line those up and then start screwing them in. Once I get one started and it goes in for a little bit, I'll go ahead and grab the second one just so they're not angled and awkward and trying to fight each other as I'm tightening it. And then just tighten these both all the way down. All right, so once they are tight, this should be flush against here. Your butt pad should not have a gap between the back of the stock. Again, no torque spec settings. If you start hearing plastic cracking and crunching, you're probably going a little too tight. So once it starts to get too tight to turn by hand and it won't go anymore, just stop. So the next thing we need to do is we need to get our bolt reassembled so we can get it put back in. So you're just going to need all these pieces here. We've got our firing pin, our spring, our bolt with the tail piece, our retaining pin for the firing pin, our bolt, and our cam pin. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to insert our bolt back into the carrier here. It's important to pay attention to the direction of the extractor. Since the bolt is going to be sitting in this way, the extractor is going to be going towards the ejection port because that's where we want it pulling our shells to, so make sure you orient it in that direction. This channel here, you should see the hole for our cam pin. The side that has the hole in it for the firing pin needs to go down. This one has a little notch in it that's going this direction, and that should point forward towards the front of the bolt and the front of the weapon. That just kind of gives you an idea where that channel is for the firing pin in there. So you want to point that forward, push it all the way down. We're going to grab our firing pin. We are going to put the spring over it, and we are going to come in from the rear of the bolt. We're going to shove it into that hole. You're going to push it all the way forward as far as you can. You're almost going to not be able to kind of reach it anymore as you're putting it in there. We've got this hole right here on the side of the bolt carrier. This is where our retaining pin is going to go. We're just going to put that in, push it all the way down until it clicks. Then you should be able to let go of the firing pin, and if it doesn't come shooting out of the back, you've got it installed properly because that's what it's designed for. If you're having trouble getting the firing pin to go after a certain point, likely it's because of that cam pin. Remember, there's a channel in it, and that firing pin has to go through it. If this is angled off to the side or turned 90 degrees the wrong way, it will not let the firing pin go. So again, pay attention to that notch. Make sure it's pointing forward, and you should be able to get the firing pin all the way in, and then your bolt should be reassembled. So our next step is just going to be to slide the bolt into the receiver here. So make sure you've got your tail goes in first. Line it up in the grooves. It should just slide straight in. Shouldn't be any issues. Now that tail should land on that little silver dimple that's in the rear. It's on the front of that tube that we saw going back over where the stock covers. So that should be bumping into that. If it's not there, you're going to have trouble pushing the bolt in. So you may need to tilt the weapon down to let gravity help you with that tail so that it goes into the location where it's supposed to go. Now we can put our charging handle back in. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to push my bolt in. I'm going to take my charging handle and I'm just going to push it straight into that hole. It should click and lock into place. I can let go of the bolt. And as long as that tail's in the right place, I should be able to cycle my bolt and it will spring back forward. Once that's reassembled, next what we're going to do is we're going to put our fire control group back into the weapon. So I'm going to tilt it up on the back where the Picatinny rail would go. There's a little rounded kind of cutout notch here that coincides with the rear of the trigger housing here. I'm going to put that in first in the rear and then rock it towards the front and push down. You're going to have to push on the action release button because it is spring loaded and it is kind of coming away, but it'll allow that to drop in once you press it. And then all we should have to do now is take your pin. Again, it doesn't matter which way this pin is symmetrical, so you can put it either end, it doesn't matter. You can push it from either direction. You just look down the hole, make sure that you have daylight going all the way through and it's lined up properly, and then I can just insert my pin. You may need to give it a little bit of a tap or two to get it to go. So what I'll do is I'll just make sure it's even on both sides. You should get kind of a little click as it locks into those notches that were on the pin. So again, I've got even distribution of pin on both sides, so that's set. All right, so next we need to reinstall our gas pistons. So you should have these two long pins and then these two shorter ones with the threads and the 3/16 inch head on it. The muzzle end is this way, so we want this flat side of the pin facing there, and we're going to come in from the front. So that long little tail piece should be going out the back, just like this. So we're going to insert both of those. And then we're going to take the pins that have the Allen wrench head on them, and we're going to slide them in here. Make sure you're not cross-threading. Go ahead and just get them started by hand, and then you can take over with the Allen wrench. So we'll put one in, and then number two. So once I can't turn those with my fingers anymore, and I'm certain that they aren't cross-threaded, I'm going to go ahead and take over with my Allen wrench. I'm just going to tighten them by hand. Again, I'm not forcing them to the point where I'm trying to snap them off. I don't have any torque spec settings. I'm just making them hand tight until they don't want to go anymore, and then they're done. So this is reassembled. We're almost done putting it back together. All right, so now that our barrel is back reassembled, we can go ahead and attach it to our firearm. So we're just going to slide the threaded into the mag tube into that ring there. We're going to slide it all the way back. If you're having difficulty getting it to go all the way, you're going to have to pull back on your charging handle to get that to latch in all the way. So if you have a gap there, that's wrong. It needs to be sitting flush. I can gently let that go. It's going to have some spring tension and fight against you, but that's fine. We'll get it to close when we put everything else back together on here. So next we're going to slide our handguard all the way to the rear. We're going to take our carbon fiber extension tube here, wiggle it a little bit to get it to go all the way to the back. So we should push that far enough that it reveals the threads on the end here. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to put our follower in, make sure that the flat end goes towards the rear of the weapon because our spring needs to go inside of this. So we're just going to drop that down the tube. So at this point now we're going to go ahead and feed our magazine tube spring in. Now, obviously we have a lot of magazine springs sticking out, so this is a part you have to be very careful for. I'm gonna capture the end of the spring with my Magtube extension, and I'm gonna push backwards, but I'm gonna be very careful to make sure that the spring doesn't get all wiggly and bend. I wanna push it back as straight as possible until I get to the point where these threads are lined up. Keeping back pressure on it. You can put a finger on the front of it if you need to. I'm gonna turn it to the left till I get those threads to click. So I know I'm not cross-threading it, and then now I'm going to tighten it to the right. You may hear the spring turning and binding in there, but it's fine as long as it was straight when it went in, you were good to go. So just continue to tighten this by hand. Don't put a wrench or any kind of tool on there. You're going to crank it down and break it. And then now that is done. So let's go ahead and look at the other magazine tube and how to reassemble that. All right, so remember if you had this option on your shotgun and it didn't have the extra extension and we were needing to take it apart like this, this is how you put it back together. We're going to need our choke wrench again. So we've got our follower plug here. It's going to go over the end of the spring. There should be a little section in there that accepts the spring. Now, again, what we're looking for is we're looking at this dimple right here, and we're looking for this long notch that's uninterrupted that goes from here all the way there, and we want those two things to be lined up. So we're going to do that. And you can do this part by hand. You can just turn it to the right and then slowly let go, and then if it doesn't shoot out, then you know you've locked it into place. If you wanted to start with, you could have put your choke wrench on there and done. You could do it that way. Like I said, just push it till it goes there, turn it, and then when you let go, it locks back into place, and then you can just screw your magazine tube back on once you have everything else in place. All right, so that is how you disassemble and reassemble a Remington Versamax shotgun, regardless if it's the competition, tactical, or other variety. Hopefully I answered any questions you had and I covered everything. If there's something that I missed, something you have questions about, please feel free to leave me a comment down below. I'll get back to you as soon as I can. If I can't just answer your question in a text format, I'll be glad to make a follow-up video or short for you to answer your question. So anyways, with that, I'll stop taking up your time. Hope you have a great day, and we'll catch you in the next video.